Okay, we're going to start out by talking about the human self and what that self is and what it needs. And we're going to start out with a story about a little girl once gave a talk in church, and she started out with this little story. Anyone can count the number of seeds in an apple, but who can count the number of apples in a seed? She was 10. She started out her talk that way. And so, inside of each one of us is a seed, just like in an apple. And that seed can be thrown out on the freeway, splat, that's the end of it. Or it can be nourished and bear thousands and thousands of apples. So, we're going to start out by talking about the human feeling, identity, seed. And we're going to use the term seed because a seed is packed with potential. And so every little baby that's born into this earth school has inside of it potential. And that potential can be nourished or squashed depending on the treatment it gets and what's packed in there. So immediately we're going to talk about nature and nurture, which are two age-old philosophies that people have talked about for thousands of years. Nature means what is the nature of the person or the seed or the child. How many of you have children? How many of you think that all your children are exactly alike? No hands. Because each one is different. I'm a twin, and I'm entirely different than my twin. In fact, every hair of your head, if you put it under a microscope, is different than another one. How many of you have ever looked at the hairs of your head under a microscope? Anyone? I remember when I was a teenager in biology class, we pull out a hair and stuck it under, and we pull out another one, stuck it under, and some of them are long like this, and they have cells long and then short, and then long and then short. Some have split ends, some don't, some have been recently cut. But there's no two alike, and there's no two blades of grass alike, and there's no two babies alike, even identical twins. You can tell. Now, so in the nature of the seed, what kind of a seed is this? Is it a Macintosh apple? Is it delicious? Is it Fuji? And so the nature is, what does the kid come to this life packed with? What's the nature that's packed inside? And then nurture means what? How is it going to be cared for? And so what we know after 45 years or more of working with people, and what you know as being a parent, is that certain kinds of treatments will enable the nature of the seed to develop and blossom and fully actualize all that's packed inside of there. And certain other treatments will kill that or warp it. Warp. And what's another word for that? Mutate. What does mutate mean? Cause it to go a different way than it would have if it had had the right treatment. What kind of treatment do apple seeds need? Rich soil, water, sunshine, the right seasons, no poison, right? And so, what kind of treatment do human seeds need to actualize all of their full potential properly? The answer is love. And it has very many different terms. Acceptance. What's the one? Attachment is a popular word in psychology. Attachment. That means closeness. And there's many different forms of love. No one is quite sure. But we do know a lot of things from our research and from parenting that make us actualize our full potential. Think of a child as shy. Has anyone in here ever been shy? That comes from people yelling, screaming, hitting, scaring you to death when you're little. And you hold it in. See? And shyness is a mutation. Shyness is a form of survival in a world where the love supplies aren't right. Apples can mutate too if they don't get enough water, enough sun, not the right chemicals in the soil, etc. And human beings can mutate too. And what we call mental illness or emotionally disturbed or just plain weird or negative, those are mutations of the seed because the treatment is not right. And treatment comes from people, things, all sorts of things. It can come from parents, friends, teachers, siblings, husbands, wives, and it goes on all your life. It doesn't happen up till age 6 and then it's all done. Okay, so let's talk about what's packed into the seed. There's a very famous person that I quite enjoy named Bradshaw. John Bradshaw. Has anyone heard of John Bradshaw? He talks about this, and he has he says that packed inside of this seed are some traits. And if the baby gets nurtured properly, these traits will emerge. And if the baby doesn't, these traits will be squashed and they won't be. And he put it down like this. Isn't this nice? Because a little child is wonderful. Snoopy says, to know me is to love me. Now, shy people or some mutated people don't want you to know them because they're afraid that you'll hate them. What's happened to them? Somehow they've had treatment that makes them feel no good. Negative self-concept is going to be a mutation. Shy, scared, nervous, worried, or covering up that. Do you see? Low self-esteem. Children are supposed to like themselves. And they're supposed to be eager to let you come inside and see them. To know me is to love me. That's the way humans are, and that's the way little babies are. But as they get put down and not treated with love, that stuff starts to go away. And up comes mutation skills to prevent them from getting hurt even more. So let's talk about what's inside of a little baby. The first one is called wonder and awe, and I have a handout for this that Jean made for us. And a little baby, now all of you have had experience with babies, right? Why should all of you have? Because all of you were one once. So what is the wonder and awe that's in a little child? When can you see that? Take Christmas morning. Take a little kid lying in a crib. I've raised 7 children, and I remember the little kid lying in a crib going like this, wiggling a finger and going, "Oh, you can do that? Whoa!" And as they get older and older, they're full of wonder and awe. Once my daughter wrote me a letter. It was on Christmas Day. She called me and said, "My little baby, age 1 or 2, spent all Christmas morning playing with a green Kleenex." And people would send him very expensive toys, but he doesn't care. A green Kleenex. Wonder and awe. The little child looks out upon the world with wide, uncritical eyes, never complaining about rocks because they're hard, or grass because it's green, or water because it's wet. Love it. Wonder and awe. They accept things the way they are. This is one of the traits of a healthy person. That still, to this day, they look out upon reality, they accept it, they love it. They don't always wish it would change. They're not mad or sad. "Darn rock, hurt my leg," right? I should have watched out for that rock because they're hard, you know. And wonder and awe and acceptance. This O is for optimism. Little kids are optimistic. Remember the story we tell about a little boy in a room full of manure? What does he say? "There must be a pony in here somewhere." That's optimism. They're positive because they come from a positive source. Let me say something right here. 80% of the people in our country believe in God. 60% of them go to some God club or church or religion. So in healthy psychology, it's very important to take people's belief systems and work with them because it gives them lots more ability to learn and to progress. So what we say is these little seeds come from God. The baby comes from God. We believe in that in this country. God is positive. God is love, Bible says. And so the baby is born with this in it. And optimism means positive. We love to be here. There's a lady named Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. Has anyone ever heard of her? She was a great specialist. She's a Swiss psychiatrist. She wrote probably 10 or 12 books on death and dying. And she was one of the ones that helped to discover the 10 steps of dying and the recognition that your inner being that we're talking about right here, this real self, authentic self, spirit self, doesn't end when it dies. It goes on. And we'll even tell you the steps tonight that people go through when they're dying. And how does she figure that out? By resuscitation studies, which have become really very important in the last 20 years. Okay, so the little baby's optimistic. They reach out for love. I used to get kind of angry when I had to go upstairs to a baby's room at 3 a.m. in the morning and rock them and pick them up and see why they were crying. And they'd stand up in the crib. See me, notice me, help me. Hey, I'm a treat. Why are you so scowling, Dad? He doesn't know that it's 3 a.m. All he knows is that he's a treat, and I should be thrilled to give him hugs and hold him and rock him back to sleep. How long does that last? Why don't you? So very often, the baby starts out liking himself, liking life, liking the fact that he's here. Hey, I'm here, right? So that's optimism that the little babies have. Naive, N stands for naivete, or naive, that means that they're innocent. They don't know all the stuff. They don't know it's 3 a.m. They just, well, you must love me. I mean, you had me, and so they're very naive and they're very innocent, and they trust and they have tons of faith and hope. I remember one day on a porch. It was up higher than me. Here are the kids. The oldest one, she was 10 or 11, down to the youngest one, 3 or 4 or something. And they were going to jump off the porch because our house was being built. And so would start down with the little one. 3. Wow! Jumps into the air. Total trust. Gets up to the next one. Pretty good. A little older. You're going to catch me, aren't you? And could you come a little closer? And up to the 10-year-old. Dad, you can't. And she leans down and holds on. So as they get older, they get less trusting, less naive, more worried. Hey, you won't drop me, will you? Get it? D stands for dependent. Now, I want to say something about this because this is very important. A mutated person whose seed didn't get loved properly is overly dependent. I have a guy right now that I'm treating who almost killed himself because his wife wanted a divorce and they're broken up. That is too dependent. So we have what we call over-dependent, or the term co-dependent. Has anyone heard that? Codependent means that the person you're dependent with needs you just as badly as you need him or her. Yes?
On the other side of the scale, would a mutation be if someone is overly independent, like they won't accept help from anybody?
Absolutely.
Accept any charity or...
I'm going to tell you that in just a minute.
Okay.
Okay. Minute.
Okay.
Okay.